But today we're going to talk about Shannon's story, which is one of hope and recovery and finding purpose in your pain. 10 years of solid addiction to alcohol. And we're not talking about too many margaritas on a Friday night. We're talking about very, very serious addiction, drinking in the closet at 4 a.m. You share just an early morning, what that might have looked like when you were just in the worst of it.
Solidly for the final year of my active drinking, I would wake up around 4:45 because I was trying to get in a run before work. And so, I was so chemically addicted that I didn't, even a few hours without alcohol would have thrown me into withdrawals. So I'd wake up at 4:45 and I would go downstairs to run on my treadmill. We lived in DC at the time. I'd go downstairs to run on my treadmill, but I would have 2 or 3 mini bottles of wine before I even did my morning run. And that was to kind of just calm the shakes and just to get me where I would call getting even.
Yeah. Which to me, I'm like, if I did that, well, I would be in the bed for the next 2 days. I mean, but for her, hey, that was just her morning coffee, which seems unbelievable, but that is how chemically addicted she was. So moving forward, Shannon is married. She has 2 children, lovely, awesome children. She did get sober during her pregnancy. She did not drink during the pregnancy. And I said, oh, because you were worried about the baby. And she said, no, I was worried about getting caught and being an alcoholic and then doing something with my kid. She wasn't. At first, when she was explaining this, it was very difficult for me because I'm like, you have kids. How can you do that to your children? You have a husband. How could you put him in that position? And Shannon, explain to them the first time you explained to me where your mind was. Because when I said, why would you do that? That's so selfish. How could you put that? And you said...
Well, let me just step back. I think one of the things that when we are always talking about this, and what we've come to see is that there is this great communication divide between the loved ones and the addicts. Yeah. So, can I give you an example?
Yeah, go.
When I said that we lived in DC, we moved to Austin in 2014. 3 weeks after we moved here, I went to rehab for 30 days. Which was difficult, obviously, for my husband with 2 small children. But even that wasn't, I had several stints of relapse before I was able to get sober. And in one of those, so my husband traveled quite a bit, which was stressful for him.
And Shannon was working full-time at this point also.
Yeah, and so, my husband travels quite a bit, which was stressful for him to think he's leaving and, is she staying sober or is she not staying sober? And, I had relapsed over the weekend. He had to go out of town and he said, can you stay sober? And then that, I'm wanting to believe you so much when you say yes. And I said, and in my mind, I'm thinking, whoa, you're going out of town. That's an open door policy for me. That means I can drink without anybody watching. So probably not, but I'm going to tell you yes so that you go out of town. So he goes out of town, and of course I get my kids to school and then go straight up to HEB and get a bunch of whatever I need for the day, not food, and put it in a big HEB bag because I want to have it all collected right there so I don't misplace any bottles and get caught. Well, he can't get a hold of me, and he's starting to worry when he's out of town. And so he calls my mom, who lives in Fort Worth, and she drives down because she's like, I don't know who's going to pick up these kids. I don't know what's going on. So she drives down, comes into my house, and sees me passed out on the bed with all of these bottles, around me. She said, I really would have thought your mother catching you just passed out in your bed with bottles all around you would have been enough for you to stop drinking. And I remember the thought going through my head, kind of like a scroll, thinking, no, that was just a Monday. And in her mind, logically speaking and thinking, it was, that shame should have been enough to get you to stop drinking. Shame fuels it. So that set me on the path for my next binge.
And I want to stop you because you're thinking, who is this horrible person? Okay, but Shannon at that time, sobriety had been part of her life for moments. Okay, there was the hope of being sober. She wanted it desperately, but she was so hopeless in those times of isolation that was the only thing she knew to go to. So it wasn't because the thought of living a life free of alcohol wasn't in her brain. She had absolutely no idea how to get there. And anytime she was alone, the first thing that was there was something that could relieve this pain that she had inside. She had pain, very deep pain, from many things that had happened in her past, and she didn't know how to deal with them. And I love the story about your mother saying, surely this is your rock bottom. Your mom comes home and there's alcohol everywhere, and you're passed out, your kids are, who's picking them up? Because as the loved one of an addict, we always say, well, I sure hope this is going to be the rock bottom. I sure hope this is going to be the rock bottom. There is no rock bottom, because the bottom always can drop, okay? There is never a point when it's going to get so bad that they have to look up. It can always get worse. And then where I'm going to segue into the reason Shannon got sober is because the Lord intervened, okay? He decided something's got to give. And my dad, we heard him preach yesterday. He preaches at a church in Dripping Springs, and he did say, you may feel there are moments when you're seeking the Lord, you are seeking the Lord, and he's like, well, he's seeking you. He is always seeking you. Why are you seeking him? Because he is constantly, persistently seeking you. There's never a moment he's not seeking you. There's never a moment he's not looking for you. He saw her in the closet. He saw her in her worst moments, and he was calling out to her. Now, she was under the influence of alcohol, and it is very difficult. I don't care if it's alcohol addiction, drug addiction, pornography, social media, whatever your addiction is, if you're drowning in it, it's very difficult to hear the call of the Lord, but that does not mean that he's not seeking you. Okay, another thing we discussed is the point when you told me in a previous interview where you decided you had to call out to the Lord. You did call out to the Lord. You didn't want to talk to him. You were furious. You have so much pain. And just quickly, I know we don't have a lot of time, quickly walk us to that moment of your fetal position cry out to the Lord.
Yeah, I mean, I had so many, going back into sometimes we expect the presence of the Lord to be this feeling, but really we don't recognize that he is all around in so many different moments. And so I'd had the, laying in the closet and just this, constant, attack on my soul. My soul was so broken. And I don't really know. I can't tell you what it was that moved me, but I was in my bedroom and at the end of my bed, and I just cried out to the Lord and said, I don't even want to be your friend. I don't really want to have a relationship with you, but if you believe that I'm worth having a relationship with, please put that desire in my heart. And that came with abundance. And it's the only way I know how to describe it as divine, because I wasn't there in that moment. And I wasn't even there. I don't even feel like, as I'm looking back, that I was the one saying those words. I know that that was planted somewhere. God plants seeds throughout our lives. And so somewhere in my life, that seed was planted. But that's when, and I don't want to say that things changed in 24 hours and all of a sudden I was sober and everything was great. There was lots that happened after that. But that was the moment where I got a little bit of hope. And it was a little bit to say, you can get out of bed tomorrow. You can get out and walk forward tomorrow. You can keep going today. You can keep going. And there were days that I relapsed, and there were lots of things that happened, but I never lost that little seed of hope that I asked for in that moment.
And you were able to recover more quickly.
Yes, it gave me, I will say that, I mean, the way that I'm so visual, so I like to think of it in, like, that was like a layer of fog came down from my sight line, and I could see some of the tools that I had already been given. Mm-hmm. And so they were there. I'd been to rehab, I had been to outpatient, I'd been to inpatient, I'd been to meetings, I'd been to, I'd been in prayer, I started therapy, like I'd been to these, I had these things. I didn't need to find another thing.
And there again, as the loved one of an addict, we always say, he just needs to get into rehab. He just needs to go to Celebrate Recovery. You know what? If we can just get him in therapy. Those are great tools. But until you reach that point when you're just done, when you are sick and tired of the dirt in your life, you got to make that choice. The Bible is a book about God, right? It's not a history book, science book, philosophy book. It's about the Lord, and it's full of broken people from the beginning until the end. There is not a soul in this room that has not broken in some way, and that is the good news. That is the Lord pulling you through this life and teaching you to look more like Him. So that's why I love Shannon, man. Yeah, she comes with this story that's hard to hear. And we have not even told you the worst of it. Eventually, when she did really become sober, she was in a car wreck, passed out at the wheel, taken to jail, kids in the car. It gets worse. But really, all of that to me, when she told me all that for the first time, this is a long time ago, and I know she was embarrassed, full of shame, all that's irrelevant. Because I'm focusing on, man, the Lord, number one, saved your life, saved her life, saved the lives of her children, saved her marriage. And He can do that for you too, because He will walk you through that pain and make you into someone that you never thought you could be. Shannon now has helped so many women who are in recovery and who are me, who are on the other side of recovery. Now my brother has been in recovery 1 year, and it is miraculous. It is I'm so thankful. But if I had not had her in that most important time saying, don't give up on him, don't give up on him, I don't know, it would have been too much, because it broke me down. So, you're awesome.
Thank you.
What else do you want to talk about?
You're the lead here. Well, I just do want to say thank you to everyone. And there are, I want to just punctuate, Allison's point that we're all in recovery, and sometimes it feels so unrelatable when you hear somebody say, well, I'm addicted to this, or I'm going through this. But there are points of pain that, I think particularly as women, we tend to isolate, and we tend to feel like, no, I've got this, I can do it, because we are so used to just keeping going in that robotic motion of taking care of it all, and just, I'll worry about myself later, and that's where we kind of diminish the signs that God is saying, I'm letting you know, let's take care of this now. It's okay to talk and say I need help. It's okay to, I've given you a relationship, and an opportunity to have a conversation with me. There's nothing that you have to do but just say, God, and none of it has to be perfect. Nobody, in those moments where I said, can you imagine? I said, I don't even want to be your friend. And if I had said that to Allison, she might have given me the bird, but she also wouldn't have, there are so many things as humans, we would say, forget you, okay, I don't need that. But not only did that, the grace came in abundance, and that changed my entire life. And I don't even know where that conversation came from. I don't even know what started that. I just know it got really, really, really bad. And I ignored a whole lot of signs before we got there. So, my mission is really, to make sure, to help bridge that gap of communication between people who are going in the throes of active addiction, and that can be any of us at a different point in our life, and the people who love us, or the people that are loving on you, who are trying to understand what you're saying, but what you're saying doesn't make sense because you're in a state of being illogical, they're in a state of being sort of logical. And so you're just trying to understand that, and that is so hard if you haven't been there, and if you haven't opened up and allowed yourself the community of people who have walked through it to help you.
So thank you so much. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.